Time now for MediaWatch, and Emma James has been taking a look at the latest online buzz surrounding the floods here in Paris. And Emma, one man's been getting a lot of attention.
Yes, less a man, more a statue. He is known as the Zouave, and he is really the star of the show when it comes to these floods in Paris, if you can say that. It does sound a little bizarre. But now that everyone has a camera phone in their pocket, they are all heading to the Seine to capture their own images of this particular statue. Hervé Baudry, the cartoonist, has created this particular image with the words superstar, and the Zouave is taking his own selfie there. And it really is a social media phenomenon, this one. He's been trending all day, this particular statue. It is everywhere you look. And this Twitter user claims that a new Parisian word has been created, the senfi, as opposed to the selfie. Because as you see, there are huge crowds gathering on the bridges by the River Seine after it burst its banks. Everyone is waiting to see just how high these floodwaters are going to rise. This image was taken at 4 o'clock this afternoon. You can see the crowds several deep there, all trying to capture their own bit of history there on their smartphones. Now, the Zouave himself has his own Twitter account. It is a spoof account, of course, because statues aren't known for their social media prowess. However, he does seem to be very in touch with these newfangled things, because he claimed earlier that if he was completely submerged by the water, he would go live on Periscope, no less, broadcasting live online on Periscope, something that you wouldn't really expect from a 19th century soldier, which is, of course, what he is. Now, if we go back to when there have been big floods in Paris in the past, in 1955, this was the kind of scene that we saw. As you see, 7 metres 10 was the height there. We're nowhere near that level yet. We have gone past the 6 metre point. We're not sure how bad it's going to get overnight. But as you see here, no smartphones, but lots of curiosity. And I'll leave it up to you which image you prefer, whether people are just enjoying it for themselves or whether they're actually using their smartphones to try and capture an image. In 1910, this was another image when the worst floods hit Paris. They went on for 2 months. And as you can see here, you might be able to make out from the image itself, but this tweeter says also that the bridge is noticeably lower than it is now, because back in 1974, it was actually rebuilt. And it's one of the reasons why people say that the Zouave isn't really the greatest way to measure the flood threat, because he has moved. In 1974, he was boosted up another 80 centimetres. It was in order to make the bridge higher and wider so that more traffic could pass beneath it. And as you see, 1910, the water was up to his shoulders, whereas on today's Zouave, it is the same statue, but on a higher plinth, it would only be midway up his chest. So we'll have to wait and see just how far it gets this time around.
But Emma, many people are wondering what exactly the statue symbolises.
Yes, many people on Twitter asking, who is the Zouave? What is he? This Twitter user has a rather unusual take on it. He says he's the bloke who became famous for taking a bath every 50 years. If you want a more sensible explanation, this Twitter user says the Zouave represents the troops who took part in the Crimean War. Le Figaro goes into a lot more depth on this one, saying the Zouaves were the French light infantry regiment in North Africa. The Pont de l'Alma was actually named after a very famous battle, the Battle of Alma, during the Crimean War in 1854. Now, the bridge was built almost immediately afterwards, was finished by 1856, and there were originally 4 soldiers on it. After it was rebuilt in 1974, only the Zouave was kept on, and he is known for being basically a barometer by which people can measure the risk of flood. The old saying is that when his feet are in the water, Paris is at risk of flooding. And it's obviously a problem for people up and downstream the Seine as well, not just Paris. When the water reaches his thighs, then the river has become unnavigable, because basically the water level is so high, the boats can't pass beneath the bridges.
And finally, Emma, despite the torrential rains, the misery, the people being washed out, there's still some humour.
There is quite a bit of humour. This one I particularly like. A journalist does the Zouave, and basically it's a journalist who went right up to his waist in the floodwaters in the Seine, and a rather angry weatherman tweeted this: do not follow the bad examples set by the media. Keep your distance from the flooding of the Seine. But if we take a look at this, this was an image, a video captured by one of the France 24 teams out today. There were actually people braving the cold and the floodwaters to actually go swimming in the Seine today.
Rather than me, to be honest.
Incredible scene. Elsewhere, some of the images that we're seeing, things like this. High tide on the Paris plage, because, of course, as of July and August, these walkways will become the Paris plage, beaches on the banks of the River Seine. At the moment, they are all underwater. And this one as well, another one of my favourites, Nessie making a surprise visit to Paris. And final note on this one, if we take a look at this cartoon, there's petrol again, because of course we've had all these petrol shortages, and the driver just says, shut up, because we are feeling rather aggrieved here in Paris right now. Petrol shortages, floods, strikes, you name it, we've got it.
OK, Emma, thanks for that lighter look at those floods occurring across France.